What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back. We get to talk to PFL Challenger Series fighter Louie Sutherland, who's got a fight coming up here about a month away. It's on February 10th on Fubo TV. That Challenger Series is going to heat up, folks. It's going to produce a lot of talent. 4-1, my man here, fighting out of the UK. He's got Alton Meeks as an opponent. He's 4-1. These guys are very much alike. How you doing, Louie? Good to have you on.
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
You know, you're 29, he's 28, you're 6'3", he's 6'3". You're both 4-1. You're both first round finishers. Pretty identical, right down the middle.
That's right, and I think that's the kind of matchups you want when you obviously you get into the sport. You
Yeah.
want to put yourself against people that are the best, and yeah, here we are.
Solid matchmaking. I would say the only difference I see is he hasn't fought much recently. He is coming off a win. He took a loss 3 years ago to Jorgen De Castro, who we're familiar with.
Hmm.
You're actually coming off your loss. So your loss is a little bit more fresher. They say that first
Yep.
loss can be pretty humbling. What was it for you? You started off 4-0, smoking everybody, and then you took a decision loss. What did it do to you, and how much has it made it better?
Yeah, obviously, there's always two ways you can go. You can let it affect you negatively or take the positives from it. I definitely don't like losing for sure. I love to win, but I've been in sports a long time, and it's part of the learning curve. And taking my loss, it made me realize what I need to work on. What areas I need to, to push hard in, and so forth. And yeah, I guess it is humbling, but it's also it's definitely a driver for me. I hate losing. I hate the feeling, but I use it to fuel me.
Would you say that better to take it now than obviously later? Maybe in some sort of a title match. I mean, I think pretty much obvious that that's the case, right? But at the same time, did it stunt you in any way mentally? Um,
Nah, obviously everyone's different, but I would say I'm quite mentally resilient in that sense. I don't let it affect me mentally. And yeah, obviously when I speak to people, more experienced people, they always say, "Oh, it's better to get it out the way now than it is further down the line." Um, but once you sign for the PFL and you go into these fights, you know that whoever's going to be in front of you is going to have a good skill set, and it's about executing the game plan. And on that night, my opponent's game plan was just he executed better than I did, and that's just how it goes. You roll the dice, and that's how the cookie crumbles.
yeah. In
So,
his loss, he was finished. You, however, you did go the distance. You may have just answered the question, but I was going to ask you what was the biggest thing you learned from the fight?
um, the biggest thing I learned from the fight is pretty much, again, yeah, just being in the cage with people that are going to be, have great careers, and they've got great careers ahead of them and already have good careers. So, I always like to put myself against the best. And as I said, you roll the dice, you get in there, and you let your hands go and you wrestle hard, and whatever it may be, and whatever the outcome is, the outcome is.
Last year, we did have a fighter that was in the Challenger Series that looked so good. Eventually, he got into the regular season and actually became the finalist. Are you looking to follow that same blueprint?
Yeah, 1000%. I mean, it's already been in my mind. I've already envisioned that being in the main league, and going all the way and stuff like that. I'm quite big on affirmations and you know positive thinking and so forth, but that kind of stuff doesn't come without the hard work. So I know it just doesn't get delivered to you. You need to put in the hard, the hard graft on the mats, and that's what I'm doing. And I think that's the difference in terms of obviously realizing where I need to push hard, and taking rest days when I need the rest, and things like that, and being a bit more professional about things.
Hmm. I may have pegged you as a 29-year-old. I correct myself. You're 28.
I'm going to
Um,
be 29 by the time the fight comes around. Yeah.
yeah,
That's all
yeah.
right.
Close, yes. But when you're 53 like me and you got gray, you want to, call it like it is. You're 28.
I
So
wouldn't say you look 53, man.
thank you. Now if we go back to 2019, that was your first amateur fight. So around 25 is when you started in the sport, and you said
Hmm.
played sports. So what other sports did you play, and why did it take you so long to migrate over to MMA where you've done so well?
Um, I mean, I've always had fighting in me. I mean, I guess it's always quite cliche, but fighting's in my blood. I mean, it's one of those things. So I've always boxed, and I've always been into martial arts. I've done every single martial art under the sun. But primarily when you're in London, soccer or football, as we call it here, is probably one of the biggest sports. So I played football for a little while. Then I transitioned into rugby because I finally found out that I was probably not going to make it as a professional football player. I was a bit too heavy, and um, you know, long distances isn't really for me. I'm quite an explosive person, so rugby was the sport for me. I always done that alongside boxing. But when I obviously took my rugby career to the next level, eventually when I stopped playing, I needed something to fuel me and keep me going. I'm not one that can just sit around and not do anything and live in the past. So as I said, fighting's in my blood. It's in my family. Boxing was always the one that I sort of went back to. Then I thought, nah, let me add some elbows and some knees and some wrestling into this and see where it can take me. And here I am. As I said, roll the dice and see where it takes me.
I was gonna guess, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't, that you look like you struck me as a rugby player. Um, However, you must have some incredible athleticism if you played football as well and then was able to translate into rugby, because some similarities, but a lot of different skills
Yeah,
are
yeah,
involved in both sports. So that's awesome.
for sure. And I had this conversation with my cousin the other day because he's a football coach. Um, and I think playing football made me a better rugby player because of the footwork and the hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. It
Hmm.
just made me a slightly better rugby player in terms of I was, quite of, you know, always been sort of bigger in that sense than other kids in terms of, whether I was chubby as a kid or whatever, but I was always able to kick the ball and I always had the ability to use my feet as well as my hands. So it kind of transitioned into that, and also it transitions into the martial arts that I'd done as a kid:
Hmm.
kickboxing, kung fu, karate, all of that sort of cliche sort of martial arts stuff that I did growing up. Was It just helps. Everything just rolls into one, really.
Is Volkanovski kind of one of your favorite players, just because you guys share that common trait of being former
Yeah,
rugby
yeah.
players?
So obviously, you have two different types of rugby. I ain't going to get into it now, but you have rugby league and rugby union. Um,
Mm.
and where he's from, rugby league is predominantly, a really big sport. But over here in England or down south in London, rugby union's the main thing. Whereas up north, it's rugby league. But I was privileged, to play both. And Volkanovski, I mean, I just understand that the athleticism that he must have from playing a good level of rugby league, and the cardio and things like that. I just appreciate how far he's gone. And yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite fighters now, for sure, as well.
I thought you were going to tell me there's a difference between rugby league and Australian leagues. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, hold on.
No, no, that's what I mean. I'm not going to get
There's
into
two
it, but
rugbies too.
there's
Oh, wow.
difference, and and in England there's a north-south divide. I don't know if you guys sort of know about that,
I
but
didn't know that.
yeah, I mean, rugby league's a very working class sport, and rugby union's quite a middle class sport. Where I'm from in London, uh, in the north of London, nobody plays rugby. Everyone in my area played football, and even me to play rugby was like, oh, you play rugby? That's how come? So, and then obviously there's even there's
But
it's too long to get into, but
which one's the more popular one where there's the big? See, I should go get it. I just got myself a jersey for
okay.
Christmas, and it was one of them from the All Blacks. I just thought it was super cool, and my girlfriend got it for Christmas. But which one's the one that's like, where's there's the big World Cup and then like
Yeah,
a
so you have the big World
popular
Cup. So that's rugby union. That's rugby union.
one?
So you
Okay,
have the big World Cup, and the All Blacks are very famous,
yeah.
and so forth. But then rugby league is in sort of the southern hemisphere. So New Zealand and Australia, rugby
Hmm.
league is a massive sport. They get like 90,000 sometimes to the
Yeah,
arenas, whereas in England it's not as big. But the athleticism needed to play at the top level in rugby union or rugby league
yeah.
is obviously, to be a professional in any sport, you need to have many attributes. But yeah,
Nice. Okay.
Volkanovski's a massive example, someone that was probably quite big, and now he's slimmed down a lot, and he still holds that power and that athleticism at his weight that he is now. So it
For
just
sure.
transcends into combat sports, I guess, or vice
Hmm.
versa.
Louis, so I'm terrified to ask you this next question because it's going to dictate how the rest of the interview goes.
Okay,
Who's your football
fire
squad?
away, man.
Who's
Say
your
that again. Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
your football team?
Oh, my football team. So I'm from a place in London called Tottenham.
Mm.
So Tottenham Hotspur is my local team.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm actually of Scottish heritage. So my dad and my dad's family Scottish, and they're massive Celtic supporters. So I don't know if you guys know who
Yeah.
Celtic are.
Hmm.
Celtic
So
and Blue Jays.
massive Celtic supporters. Growing up, that was always driven into me. Celtic, 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 and obviously when my dad come down to London, lived in London, he didn't have an English team, but obviously the local team was Tottenham, and yeah, that's the team I support. I have cousins that support them. So yeah, it's so in the Premier League, Tottenham Hotspur is my team, and I know we're not the best at the moment, and we haven't we haven't always been the best, but yeah, man, it's hard supporting them, but you got
I
to do it
thought
sometimes.
I thought maybe with Sir Alex Ferguson we could get you on the Manchester United train. That's where George and I were.
He's
Manchester.
Scottish.
Oh, you guys are Man U fans, yeah?
Yeah.
So I
No,
thought
I
maybe
definitely won't be. I won't be switching sides this late into my life for sure.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'll
Alex
just be glory
Ferguson's
hunting.
is Scottish, and so is Scott McTominay. But I'll tell you what, Tottenham has a few really, really good players that I like
They
watching.
certainly
One
do.
of them is
Yeah,
Son, the forward man. He's incredible.
yeah, he's really good. And to be fair, I think he's starting to get the recognition now. Whereas last season, maybe the season before, he didn't get the recognition. But now I do think he's up there with some of the best wingers in the world for sure. And I think we're lucky to have him at Spurs,
Yeah.
Tottenham. But if he does go, you can't blame him. If he wants to chase some glory and whatever it may be, me as a fan, you can't begrudge someone that wants to, go on and win things. And you know, I don't think he's
Mhm.
going to win much at Spurs, and that's my honest opinion. But I'm the poor sucker that's got to support him. He can move on.
Hey Louis, so your opponent very aggressive. You're very
Hmm.
aggressive as well. There's a famous
Yeah,
Mike Tyson quote: "Everybody has a game plan till you get punched in the face." Is that
that's
going to
right.
be a challenge of sort, maybe for both of you? Is just sticking to that game plan and not getting wrapped up in some violence here?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I always want to be involved in the best fights possible, the exciting fights and so forth. But I understand that this is MMA, and everyone's going to have a game plan. And yeah, I mean, like I said before, I'm learning a bit more of how to manage fights better and be a bit more professional in that sense, rather than just going out all guns blazing and just being an absolute wrecking ball, which uh, I have it in me to do. But again, it's just about being professional, and that's only going to take me so far. I need to obviously make sure that we don't get wrapped up in each other's game, and sort of focus on what I need to do rather than what he's going to be doing. I focus on myself. So yeah.
How do you manage game plan versus Challenger Series and wanting to sort of stick out as well?
um I wouldn't say it's a tough one, because you see in my last fight, I was in a sense trying to show what what I was capable of. I I didn't really get wrapped up in the moment of, oh, I need to put on a show and this isn't really who I am. And I just went out there and I was myself, and that's all I can be. And I'm not going to lie to anyone. I do want to be exciting. I want to be a fan favorite, and that's just the style I have. So, I definitely have to manage it and learn how to manage it. And like I tell a lot of people that when they first meet me, I'm learning on the job, and that will come with time and that will come with experience. And yeah, but a lot of people don't have the dog in them, and I know for sure I've got the dog. Now I just need to tame him a little bit and unleash him when he needs to be unleashed, if that makes sense.
Louis, so Goz and I have been doing this show for about plus over 15 years.
Okay.
we've talked to a lot of fighters over time,
Hmm.
but one of the nice things is when you go through these different generations, and then some of the other fights, some of the stars that we've become familiar with,
Hmm.
they go into retirement, and then here comes the new crop.
Yeah.
And it's up to guys and gals to connect with fans, connect and keep
Yeah.
us all excited. And you've done an excellent job, I got to tell you, because with the
Appreciate
time
that.
change, it's 6 a.m. for Goes and I. So we got up early to do this. We
All
don't
right.
mind.
Thanks, guys. I didn't realize, and I was a little bit late because I got a message saying it was tomorrow when it was because of the time difference. And yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, guys.
we don't mind doing it. We're up at all hours of the day. We love doing this, but I want to give you a peek behind the curtain. And so, like
Mhm.
you mentioned, you were a few minutes late, and then I saw the Scottish flag. So I'm telling Goes, I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be tough to understand because they say the further you in the UK you go north, the tougher the accent, right? So I'm like, here we
That's
go.
right.
This is
And to
fun.
be fair, it's quite, people ask me, you sound like you're from London, but you
Yeah,
you fly the Scottish flag. And that's just something personal to me. I've said it before in other interviews. That's a tribute to my heritage and my
yeah.
dad. And my dad's not with me anymore.
Mm,
So I fly that flag for
mhm.
him. And I know that he's with me and stuff like that. It's a bit sentimental, but you know, I don't know if you can understand me, but I don't think my accent's that thick
No, I
to,
can understand you perfectly. I was
yeah.
going to say, I mean, so everything was making sense as it went on. As soon as you said London, like, okay, further south, he moved there a
Yeah.
long time ago, so he doesn't have as thick of an accent. But I'm just telling you, man, we found you incredibly charming and interesting, and so you got that ingredient. And then I've
Thank you.
seen the highlights. You got that ingredient too, man. I think you can go a long way. But I did want to
Thank
ask
you.
you one last question on the way out, maybe two.
Yeah.
But why did you decide on PFL? Because now the sport has history, right? So you have your Bispings and Hardings that went to the route of the UFC, MVPs and Paul Daly's that went to the route of Bellator, and then Brendan Loughnane. He just locked it down. From Manchester, and he won $1 million at PFL. But for you, what was there options, or did they come charging the hardest, or did you want to go to PFL? Explain that to us, please.
So yeah, there was definitely options. There was options on the table and different routes and so forth. I just think the PFL um, resonated with me just a little bit more. The setup, the activity. Obviously, if you, when and if you do get in the league, the activity. I know it's tough, and obviously the matchups. There's no this or maybe that. It's like this is the guy you're fighting. He's in the league. It's the best fighter goes all the way, and that's the kind of setup I like. You know, whether I'm 4-1 or 20-1 or whatever it might be.
Right.
I want to be pipped against the best, and yeah, and good luck to every man that steps in there, really. So PFL just resonated with me in terms of the setup. Obviously, I heard that they obviously look after their fighters very much
Hmm.
and all that kind of stuff and sort of the backroom stuff. And they've been nothing but good to me so far, and long may it continue. And I think they're, you know, the best organization out there at the moment in that sense, in terms of, I mean, look at Brendan's career. Look what he's had to do to get to where he is now.
Right.
And I'm one of the fortunate ones to be able to, you know, already sign with the PFL this early in my career.
Yeah.
And someone like Brendan, who's been in the game for such a long time, finally achieving his goals and so forth. It just, it's great. It's great to see and great to hear that a company like PFL are rooting for their fighters.
Hmm. Okay, and then this is the last one. I'm going to roll the dice here. A lot of times, so before COVID, we had our studio at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas. I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas.
Never know.
COVID moved everyone around, so now we do a
Hmm.
lot of the work from home. But a lot of times, a fighter like yourself would come to the studio, and when we connect with them, we're like, "Yeah, let's go for it." Back in the day, we always used to ask a fighter in studio, "Hey, give us a good street fight story." And the one thing I noticed was people from England always deliver. Like they always have some epic stories. Same guys we mentioned: Paul Daly, Michael Bisping, Jimmy Manuel, man. All like, but how about you? You said you kind of always liked, throwing hands on the rugby
You're gonna get
pitch,
me in trouble, guys. You're gonna get
in-
me.
on the rugby pitch, or a club back in the day. You got one for us? Or?
Yeah, I'll fire away. I mean, I've got loads of stories, but hopefully this one doesn't get me into too much trouble.
Well, as long as it wasn't last week, yeah.
No, for sure. No, it wasn't. No, this was a long time ago. It was
Okay.
actually my 21st birthday.
All right.
And I'm not a massive drinker or nothing like that, so I don't drink loads. And if there's something to celebrate, I'll have a drink and so forth. But
Right.
so it was my 21st birthday. I'm from quite a rough area in London. Obviously, I know the guys in the States always think that England's not that rough and there's no guns and there's no violence and blah blah blah. But there's loads of violence where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
But I was having a drink with one of my best pals, having a little drink, and then I heard that all of my sisters, I've got loads of sisters. I'm talking, I've got 4 sisters, and I've got loads of girl cousins, and they're all in this little bar, in a place called Wood Green, just having a good time. They're just out socializing with themselves. I've gone there to see them, and I've turned up, and anyway, someone's said something to my sister, and it's just popped off. So all of a sudden, my one of my best pals he's not the biggest guy, not the tallest guy. He started throwing hands straight away, right? And he gets absolutely dropped. I'm talking stiff as a board.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh shit, fuck. So anyway, I've then chased that guy. I've picked him up and thrown him into a garage. Anyway, 6 other guys have come out. I know this is going to sound crazy, but 6 other guys have come out. There's kicks flying. My sisters are getting involved. My sisters are battling people off and so forth. So I've chased another one. I've clotheslined him. I've even got the scar on my...
Like Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, like I ended up clotheslining him. And luckily enough, I mean, a bus come past and it nearly hit him, and it was wild. So anyway, it's all died down. And I'm thinking, oh, well, got out of that one pretty easy. So as I'm getting into the car now, I've seen my cousin, he's a boy, arguing with the same guys, and all of a sudden I've just seen this big Eastern European guy just go whap, and he stiff as a board. My cousin's been knocked out, so I've got out of the car and I've run over to him and I've flying kneed this guy, landed on top of him and just beating the shit out of him. And obviously I had to shoot home. Obviously, police were coming and everything else, but that's one of the stories. I mean, that's only a little bit of detail. That's not too much, but the reason why I remember it so much and it resonates is because it was my 21st birthday, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things I won't forget. There was quite a few of them. They were big Eastern European guys, and they knocked the shit out of my best pal and my cousin. And I was like, fuck, the chips are down here, man. I'm by myself, and luckily had my sisters behind me to help me out,
Yeah.
throwing hands as well.
I think you're leaving a few things out because you said 6 came out and all you mentioned was a clothesline. You're probably leaving a few KOs out, right? You took out a few
there was 1 or 2, but credit probably goes to the girls in my family rather than me,
Oh yeah, take it down.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah,
wow. That's crazy. That's a good one. I love that one.
I've got some teeth marks in my forearm where I clotheslined this dude. I swung hard and his 2 front teeth ended up in my arm, my forearm. So if we ever meet up, I'll show you the scar on the forearm.
was the flying knee like Masvidal style? Like you ran?
Yeah, it was just like a flying knee, and it just connected and he just fell, and I was like, fuck, I was lucky there, boy. If it didn't connect, I would have been on my arse, and it would have been even worse for me. But I got out with a few bumps and scrapes, but hey, that's what we live for.
That's crazy.
I
That's
definitely felt alive after it.
Yeah. I didn't know that northern London is dangerous. I always keep hearing southeast kind of like is because I'm relating it to football, so I'm always hearing stories about Millwall and West Ham. It's east and southeast, so I thought maybe down there.
So obviously you've got
maybe in the
you've
north.
got all different types of crime and violence in London. I mean, London's a big city. Any major city is going to have high levels of crime. If you're looking at England or Scotland, look at the likes of Glasgow, where my dad's from. Loads of violence there. Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester, London. These big cities, it's the same as like New York, Philly, or wherever New York City, Philly, or places in LA that probably I ain't even heard of.
Yeah.
Big cities and stuff. There's always going to be violence, but you have these little pockets. It's not the violence that I'm talking about. It's not football related. It's more like street related, street gangs, and some organized crime gangs and things like that. And that's the kind of violence that goes on in London.
Yeah.
People always talk about there's no guns and stuff, but say that to the friends that I've had seen shot and stabbed and things like that. So there's a lot of violence, but I don't like to obviously, that cliche story is that I come from the street, man, and things like that. I don't want to be sort of known as that type of. I'm a street dude and things like that. I just want to be known as a fighter, and where I'm
No.
from is where I'm from, and whatever happens here, I could be from the suburbs. It doesn't matter. I'm a fighter at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
inner city London, it's rife with knife crime, gun crime, gang culture, all
So
that type of
it's not
stuff,
like what
and
we saw 20 years ago on Bend It Like Beckham is what you're telling us.
but I don't. Obviously, you guys have the projects. You guys have projects in
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ghettos,
the US, and
projects, everything, man. It's
yeah. So over here in London, we have council estates. I don't know if you guys have heard of that type of stuff.
mm-mm.
It's social housing, like high-rise buildings, big, massive
Yeah.
estates with high-rise buildings, and you grow up and they're like concrete jungles. They're sometimes police don't even go in there. Police can't police those types of estates, and you just have kids and adults running about at free will near enough with
Well, we
weapons
just
and
saw Goes and I 6 months ago. What did we watch, Goes? Summer
Top,
House? Was that the
top
name?
boy.
Top Boy.
Top Boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that depicts
Okay.
life in London. Really, is quite a Top Boy is great. I love
Yeah.
Top Boy. It resonates with my childhood, to be fair,
Nice.
and sort of how I grew up on big estates like that and that type of culture, and the crime that goes on, but also that camaraderie, and you obviously how street guys are and stuff. But a lot of people don't realize that about London, and obviously I don't talk about it too much. It's just something that never really comes up. People don't
Right.
normally ask those types of questions, but
You can blame it on the Junkie Radio guys. Hey, they brought it out on me. But to be
yeah, they
fair, you were just backing up your girls, the girls on your side of the family. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that's right,
So if
man.
anything, this was a heroic street fight story, an epic street fight story, and then for me, an epic interview, man. I loved it. I'm glad we woke up. We did this. You're a great guy, man. I hope to
Thanks,
talk to you
guys.
some
Yeah,
more. So thank you for the time.
nice one. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully see you soon.